I think the architect should go, hey, we need to bring on a landscape architect right now, right? It's almost as if, like, let's reverse the scenario. Let's say all of a sudden, all of outdoors became unsafe, right? Like, let's say like some post-apocalyptic thing happened and nobody can go outside now. And then our landscape architect clients are like, okay, I need you to design these buildings. And we're like, yeah, I got this, bro, you know? And you guys are like, no, you don't. This is not how, I mean, you could, like, a lot of skill sets translate over, of course.
Sure.
But that conflict. So I think, and I say this dramatically, right? Just to prove a point, you know? But like, it's all about the coordination, working together and bringing on consultants on early, and to avoid really big mistakes that you know, if you're at the tail end of your construction document set and then you bring us on, I mean, there's only so much we could do, right? Sure. Like, it's like no one's going to pay for you guys to redo a set, and especially if we like point out something really glaringly bad, you know, where the seismic engineer and the civil and structural engineer already all signed off on. It's like it's too late, you know.
Yeah. No, I you know, starting early is such a big thing, and having the right people from the very, like, day zero is something that we obviously tell clients for everyone involved. It's like, you know, like, oh, when do we need an architect? You start with everybody as soon as possible, because there's no harm in it. It's interesting, you know. I think, well, obviously there's a range, you know, there's a range of architects, a range of landscape architects, but in general, you know, some of the things you're mentioning, I can see as being patterns. And I think maybe perhaps partly because in education, the landscape architecture and architecture are separate a lot of times. And also it goes back to kind of like your training as an artist is one that I think is similar to design training, in the sense that you're taught, like, there's certain skill sets and way of thinking that get applied to everything you do in life. And that's fantastic for sure. And I think sometimes, you know, architects push the boundaries of that for good reasons, but you also need to realize, certainly in a professional sense, when there's limits to that and when it makes more sense to collaborate together.
Well, if there is experts who have a bigger knowledge, you know, we can make do with the skills we have to do some of, you know, those types of projects you're describing. But ultimately, we're not experts of the outdoors and the streets and those elements. So, yeah, I mean, working hand in hand, it makes more sense.
Yeah, and Marina, like, let's say like you guys are like a 2-person firm, right?
Right.
So you know, I'm going to assume if you're doing a small project, you don't have the budget to hire a landscape architect for the whole entire project. But what you can do is you could say, hey, Michael, we're starting this project, and this is our concept, this is our idea, this is the plan view, right? Can you take a look at it? And I say, absolutely. You pay me, 1 or 2 days consulting fees, and I'm able to look at it, and right away I'll be like, okay, let's put this here, let's do this, have you considered this, blah, blah, blah. And you get that information. It costs you, you know, a couple $100. And now you have that much better of a plan. And then you could bring me back on or anybody else on midway. Okay, can you retake a look at this again? Absolutely. You could take it right out of your design fee. You probably wouldn't even feel it. Or you could just tell the client, like, hey, we have a consultant that just looks at things and helps us out. We want to add that on. Or you could just add it on without telling him. You know what I mean? Like,
no, it's smart. There's a lot of kind of soft ways, you know, to get into it. I think it's interesting, you know, the understanding of outdoor space. I would say for me personally, it's something I've always been fascinated with from a very early time, as even starting in my undergraduate career. And so I've always been very sensitive to it. And it's a funny skill. It's a funny knowledge to have that some architects do, but others like just don't. Because architecture, as you know, is super broad, so you can go this way or that way or whatever.
Sure.
And there are definitely a lot of architects who are hyper-focused on like more tectonic things, very interior things. And I just imagine for me, if I were that type of architect, which I'm not really, but if I were that way, I don't see how I would jump to a very different spatial situation and be like, yeah, I got this. I got plants. Yeah, I understand plants. I understand the dynamics of this. Even with whatever expertise I have of outdoor spaces, I'm very aware of the limit. Right. I don't know anything about trees. In fact, I'm allergic to all trees, so I despise them. So, I guess maybe there's an ego thing involved. I'm not sure.
It can be, but now that I've sufficiently shitted on you guys, now I'll praise you guys. And that is what I have seen, though, is the architects that do step back and start asking questions. Right? Like, so when I worked at a multidisciplinary firm, which is, God, I can't say enough, like how valuable that was. And if anyone ever has a chance to work at a multidisciplinary firm, like jump on it. And when I started working with architects and things were collaborative, and you see some architects really get into it and start asking the right questions. Like, so why did you put this here? And why is this, right? Mm-hmm. And then after you see them after a year or something, they just become landscape architects, right? But they're even almost more powerful, right? Because now they have this whole architecture experience, and they're able to apply that using all the principles that we've already established. And I think the crossover architects that become landscape architects are really phenomenal and really fantastic, right? Like, so there's the good way and the bad way of doing it. And one is just assuming that what we do is easy and you figure it out. And then another way is like, well, let me ask and let me find out why it is that they're doing. Yeah. And some of them are just phenomenal. Like, it's really impressive to see.